Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with a Pastor. We're here today in the book of Mark. We're going through the book of Mark, and we've gotten to Passion Week or Holy Week. Mark deals more with this week than any other gospel writer. It is the central part of his teaching, and he's been taking us from Galilee all the way, showing us the events that happened. We've kind of taken that trip with Jesus through the Bible, and now we're there. And they walked up from Jericho. We know that that's where blind Bartimaeus received his sight, and so we get to the day that he goes, and we talked about yesterday how he did his triumphant entry. It was late in the day. He rode a donkey. They yelled, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." And then the next day, he goes to clear the temple. They're staying in Bethany, which is just 2 or 3 miles outside of Jerusalem. They walked right by the Mount of Olives, right by the Garden of Gethsemane to go to the temple. I've walked that road. And in verse 12, it says, "The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig leaf tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, but it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, 'May no one ever eat fruit from you again.' And the disciples heard him say it." So Jesus sees this fig tree. He's hungry. He goes. It looks like it has figs. It's out of season. But he goes and he sees it. And it doesn't have figs. It's not producing figs. And so he curses the tree. I think this is a lesson for the disciples. It's going to be a lesson in 2 or 3 ways. We'll find out tomorrow, and we'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow, that he uses it as a way of prayer to show how you can pray and ask for things. But I think the other thing is that we're to live fruitful lives. Our lives are to be fruitful. Our lives shouldn't look good, but not be fruitful. And he's teaching his disciples that. On reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple area and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise to the temple courts. And he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him because the whole world was amazed at his teaching. When evening came, they went out of the city. Jesus goes into the temple area. And the temple was made for prayer. It was believed that Jesus took up residence in the Holy of Holies, and people would come to prayer. When we go to the Holy Land, we're up in the Galilee region. Both guides that I've had when I've gone there have made a big deal out of the fact that during Jesus' day in the synagogue, that was for teaching. They learned the Torah, they learned the Bible, the Old Testament. But they did their worship and their praying at the temple. That's why they went to Jerusalem 3 or 4 times a year, because that's where they went to meet with God and pray with him and to do that. Jesus kind of set that on its ear. He didn't agree with that. He believed that you prayed wherever you were at. You prayed in spirit and in truth, and that could be anywhere, but that was their belief. And Jesus went there, and what's he see? Well, he sees them cheating the people. Apparently they had a pretty good racket of cheating the people. I've done some study on this. And one of the things that they did is that they had priests who were there who inspected, like if somebody brought someone of their own flock or brought a dove of their own making, they would reject it. But then they would talk about how they had a little system where they would reject the animal, but then they would put it back in and resell it. And just a real racket there. And then the doves were the what most people bought for their sacrifice. And the currency was Roman currency. That's the money that they used to buy things and everything. But at the temple, they wouldn't take that. They had to use the Jewish money, the temple money. And so in order for them to get the right money to pay for the dove, they had to exchange their money, but it wasn't at a good exchange rate. And Jesus just went in and saw all the buying and the selling and the cheating and the things, and truthfully something that apparently the priests were a part of. And so he gets mad. And that's a side of Jesus we don't see a lot. See it a few times. But he gets mad. And he literally overturns the money changers' tables. He drives out the animals. He kicks everybody off the Temple Mount where they would be. And I try and imagine that every time I'm there. What's interesting is nobody stops him. I mean, the priests and them are looking at him and they see that he's doing it, but they don't stop him. And I think the reason they stop him is they know he's right. They shouldn't be doing that in the temple. But he does that. And then Mark mentions the fact that they're very interested in getting Jesus killed after he does that. I find that interesting. He starts hitting them in the pocketbook, and they get interested in having him killed. There are two things that in the Bible that get them interested in wanting to kill Jesus. One is after he cleansed the temple, and the other one, according to John, is after he raised Lazarus. They were really interested in killing him after both those things that he did. But that's what happens on Monday. And you can tell that it's Monday because on verse 12 it says the next day. Well, we know that the first day of the week was Sunday, and then the next day is Monday, and then tomorrow we'll start looking at Tuesday. It will take us several days to do Tuesday because there's a lot of things that happen on Tuesday. And we'll look at Tuesday of Passion Week tomorrow. I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you tomorrow.